this feeling I can't leave. I'm working and I'm dreaming. Will you dare to give it all up and walk by my side? Do you see the road? Do you hear its call? Do you want a part of it? Just getting me above now.
Good evening, I'm Jason Bainbridge, your host on State of the Nation. Tonight, I have got two very special guests. There has been a mystery in the country about the double cross bearers traveling around the country, and today we solved that mystery. I introduce to you bearer number one, the deliverer of hope, Jason Woodmass, and bearer number two, the delivery of, I'm not sure what he calls his cross, but that is Paul Atkinson, and we're with him right now. Good evening, everybody. So let's start off with how you guys got involved in this. Let's go over with Jason Woodmass. Jason, what inspired you to walk across half the country with a cross?
Yeah, well, it just kind of come to me in a special way, in a spiritual way, to get out there and do something a little bit different. And something that was meaningful. So I actually had a bit of a vision of what I was supposed to do, and it came to me in a way of taking a crucifix from Auckland to Wellington, and to get down to Wellington where they were actually having the protest as well, you know, with our people down there. So and it was all about creating awareness for youth suicide. And just making sure that we could make sure the government was accountable, knowing that there was a real big problem out there. So it was obviously something that you don't take lightly. So when I told my partner about it, she thought I was a bit crazy, you know, taking a crucifix and making it political as well, obviously with youth suicide and all the protests that were going on around the country. So two things you don't say at a family get together or party: you don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics. So I was doing both of them at the same time. So we knew it was going to be challenging, and but it was basically just get out there, create the awareness for our youth, knowing that they're in trouble with their mental health, and just knowing that at some stage it was going to get a lot worse than what it was, even though it's really bad at that point. So yeah, that was the big thing, just getting the awareness out there that our youth needed help.
Yeah, and there's a lot of propaganda going around and a lot of fear mongering in the media, and I know that that's also been a problem here, because you know I'm in Southeast Asia. Not in this country, but in other countries, I've heard of kids jumping off school buildings because they're getting heckled about not being jabbed and that sort of thing, and you know, they're convinced by the system that they are a threat to humanity.
Yeah. And the big thing was the pressure from the mandates and the lockdowns was. Our youth in New Zealand, we were on the bottom of the OECD for years of youth suicide, and we're still down pretty close to the bottom at the moment. And that was before the mandates and lockdowns. So once they brought those in, it just catapulted, you know, what was a bad thing and made it a lot worse. So for me, it was making sure that the government had a plan in place to make sure our kids are okay. And I wasn't confident that was the case. So obviously, you know, taking a crucifix to Wellington and trying to get as much awareness to all the people out there to know there was an issue and put pressure on the government was my, you know, one of the big things. And the crucifix was called Hope, and it was about me carrying hope for the nation, for our kids. And unfortunately, if we get it wrong, the crucifix is what we see at the end. Yeah. And it ended up being a lot more religious as well in the way. So it ended up being really spiritual with my connection with God, which I hadn't had before. But this actually brought me as close as I could to the big guy upstairs, and it was amazing, actually.
So, were you actually a Christian before that, or did you develop it on the way?
Originally it came to me in a vision. I had a little nap and I got a vision of what I needed to do to help our youth, and obviously a vision of a crucifix and taking it to Wellington was something that shocked me as well, because it wasn't something that I'd do usually, and it wasn't something that I'd take lightly. So it was actually that led my spiritual journey, was from that day, was that I knew I needed to do something to help our youth, and I knew that it was back from our big guy upstairs that was concerned with what was going on with his children. So it started from then, and it got bigger and bigger as I went on the trip. It just got to a stage where there was no doubt in my eyes that God had actually got me to do this for our youth.
Wow, quite an experience that you've had. Now, let's introduce our second character for this evening. Now, Paul Atkinson, you have also been involved in this as well, but you actually worked together by pure chance, is that right?
What was that, Jess?
Well, not really worked together, but without realizing it, you two were working together by pure chance.
Yeah, the way that it all came together was quite incredible. But and Jason, I'm just thinking about what Jay said about how he started off with that vision and such love to want to do what he's done for the suicide awareness. And I have the feeling if you've got love in your heart, God's going to find you. And I think it's interesting, Jay, you said that you come to really know that God loved, God was really in on what you're doing on the way. But yeah, back to what you're saying, Jace. Yeah, neither of us knew about each other. I started walking with the crucifix, with the cross on Christmas Day from Dunedin. I've already walked the country once before, back in 1999, Jace, and this time it's been amazing, and the reception's been incredible. And yeah.
So what inspired you to get involved in it? I mean, you said that you did it once before. What was the original purpose for doing it way back then?
So Jason, I used to be a jockey. I rode racehorses for a living. I grew up with absolutely no beliefs or faith. I was on a life support machine after falling off a racehorse. I was 22 years old. And so that just kind of put a searching in me after falling off the horse. I could have been dead, and what's life about? That kind of thinking, and concluding that life's about love, whatever love was. So I never went looking for God or Jesus or anything, but somebody asked me if I'd like to try this God, this Jesus thing when I was 26 years old. And to be honest, Jace, I was just adding it to the list. I was like, oh yeah, I've tried everything else, and this Jesus thing again. And my life changed quite literally overnight, and for the better. And when you find a good thing, and you realise that you didn't realise God loved you for 26 years of your life, then you also realise that there's others like you that don't know God loved them. And then I'd seen another fella that has walked with a crucifix for 35 years now. His name's Keith Wheeler, and he's gone to Russia recently, and he'll walk straight up to the soldiers, bombs falling, and just let them know God loved them, and people like him inspired me.
Do you mean this is during the Ukraine and Russia conflict?
Yeah, he's just gone there recently. His name's Keith Wheeler, and he just throws all cautions to the wind, and he'll walk in, wherever there's a war, he'll go. And he'll just take he carries a 12-foot long wooden cross. 35 years.
Do you know this guy, Jay?
No, I didn't actually realise that anyone had done anything similar to what I was going to do. So I never heard of anyone doing it. I didn't think anyone was as passionate or as crazy as what me and Paul, and obviously the gentleman is. And it came to me as a shock. And obviously, on my journey, I did hear that there was that the people were telling me they were seeing me in Picton and down the South Island, and I thought they would take the mickey, and just give me a hard time. And so I'd just have a laugh and say, that wasn't me. I'm still up north.
Yeah. That happened to us in a conversation. We were kind of confused. Yeah.
And to find out that there was another person doing similar to what I was doing. And for Paul, I have so much respect for Paul for what he's done, and he's done it before. And obviously mine was a mix of spiritual, political, and obviously for youth suicide. So people accepted that a lot more than sometimes they do when someone's doing it for Jesus.
Yeah.
And for Paul to do that is such a brave man, and because you do go through adversity. Not everyone's very happy at what you're doing, and a lot of people that have had bad experiences with religion, and it's really nothing to do with Jesus or God. It's usually an institution that's stained the name. And and that's what Paul would have been copying if he had any adversity. But to hear it, for me to meet Paul, to understand that there was someone else doing exactly what I was basically doing at the same time, coming from the South Island and I was coming from the North Island to Wellington, just blew me away. It just absolutely blew me away. And for that kind of connection, and we banged into each other in Wellington. We walked into each other on a road in Wellington, and that stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't happen unless there's a reason. And that when I heard Paul was close in the area, my partner rang and she said, "The other guy's here." She was like, "There's the guy with the cross is here as well." And I was like, "Oh, brilliant." And she was like, "If you go down this road," and I was like, "Oh, I can't chase someone with it, who's doing that." I go, "If we're supposed to meet, we will meet." And basically we ran into each other on a street in Wellington, two guys with two crucifixes, which was, I was shattered at the time, because 3 weeks and I was trying to bang out 48, 50 Ks a day, which actually shattered my body. And I could hardly walk, and to hear that Paul was in the area, it kind of lifted me. But to run into him was, we both had tears in our eyes, and we met and we hugged and we talked about our journey, and it was just amazing.
To be honest, I think that it probably would have been extremely grueling for the both of you. That's some kind of endurance test, man. To go. And so, Paul, where did you depart from? Your original departure point?
Dunedin, because I was part of the No Jab, No Job campaign. I was a support worker, working as a nurse for many years, or working with people with cognitive problems, and so I planned. Then God put it on my heart to do this again, as I did back in 1999. And so I planned to drive to the bottom of the South Island, but to be truthful, Jace, I didn't have enough fuel to get there. So actually, that's why I started at Dunedin and left with $4 in my pocket, walking north. Yeah.
Wow, that's called conviction right there, buddy.
Yeah. God knows what we need, Jace.
Yeah.
Yeah. He knows. Yeah.
And it's really brave, Jace. I knew how scary it was when I first left Pokino in Auckland, and I'm not the type of person to be scared or worried, and I really, when we were driving to that location, I was full of anxiety and fear. It was the first time in my life, and this was before I started. And so a lot of people probably don't understand that you're putting yourself out there, and you don't know what you're going to receive, and you're not sure how it's going to go, and the road is a dangerous place. It is. The week after I got back to Auckland, a guy was hit on the same road that I was walking, and he got hit by one truck and thrown into 3 other cars. Woo! So he was killed instantly, and it kind of sunk home, how dangerous it is. So with Paul doing what he's doing, just so brave.
So,
Yeah.
So, Jay-
What did you do? Sorry to interrupt, but what did you do in the evenings? Or when you were marching, what were you doing in the evening?
well, sometimes people would take us in, Jace, and sometimes I'd be looking for a shelter. I learned on this journey especially just to trust God for everything. And He knows exactly what we need. Some people would come and say, I've mapped out your journey. You can stay here in Gore and Invercargill, and I've got people. And I learned that as kind as that was of them, I would just trust God would find the right people, and they would just come out at the right time and offer me a place to stay and food to eat, and sometimes I sleep in a bus shelter or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, right. So did you have, I know that Jay Woodmass had a Facebook going. Did you also have a Facebook going before?
Yeah, I've got 3,000 something friends now. Yeah. So I mainly started the Facebook because I could see that people were getting hoodwinked, and I could never see any reason for Facebook prior to that. But then when I could see that people's bodies were getting harmed, I just couldn't let that slide. And my brother had put me on the right page about all that propaganda and all that terrible stuff that they're doing to people.
Yeah.
So that's why I mainly started Facebook. Yeah. And then the cross came out of that, so it was good to have the Facebook. Yeah.
So Jace, I'm sorry, Paul. So Jace, so the other amazing thing was that when me and Paul met in Wellington was that the journey that I was taking with representing the people that might take their lives or might lose their lives, Paul was touched with that already. So even though we ran into each other and we kind of had a similar but a different cause, Paul was connected with that as well, and that really made it even more special that we had a connection with the suicide and that already. So and that was unbelievable that not only we ran into each other, but we had the same kind of connection or journey that was Paul had encountered in his life, which was amazing.
So this was a personal motivation then, Paul, for you to get doing. Something happened, and then this was your response to it, was it?
If I got this right, Jay, I think you're referring to the fact that I lost my brother to suicide.
Yeah.
Okay, I was not aware of that. Okay.
So, and I'd actually posted that, Jace, and then when I was coming into Picton with the crucifix, people were coming out to me, Jace, and saying, "Oh, we heard you're walking for suicide awareness," and this is before I knew anything about Jay, and I just presumed that because I'd posted the fact that I lost my brother to suicide, that's why they thought this, and then they also said, "Oh, apparently you cross ways such and such," and I'm thinking, I don't even know what it weighs. How do you know? Unaware that Jay was walking southbound from Auckland, and so then I had an entourage of people waiting for me at Picton, thinking I was Jay, and so when I walked into Picton, they furnished us with a platform and a stage, and I was able to inform the people the real reason I was walking. And for me personally, it was about what Jesus has done for us 2,000 years ago. And from that platform, I was able to share, because all of those people, of course, were standing against the injustices of the red light system, the people being coerced into a jab. And I was able to let them know that this was actually written about in the Bible, Jace, where in Revelation 13:15 to 18, we come to a place in life, and this was written 2,000 years ago, where you can't actually buy food anymore or sell anything unless you receive a mark, and it's pretty specific.
That's right.
In the right hand or in the forehead. Now, that was written before you could put anything in anyway, and we'll know when it happens because it's not the left hand and it's not the right foot. So this was, foretold many, many years ago. and according to the Bible, it actually gets worse from here, sadly. Yeah.
These guys, these evil fellows, really, really, really detest Jesus with a passion. So I finally understood that. I was able to consolidate within myself that, I didn't have to question myself anymore. I didn't have to question, is it real? Is it a fantasy? Is it, you go over this through your life. But once you get right deep down to start researching all these dark people, then you realize, okay, so this is not a game. This is for keeps.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Jace, is there is a bit of a battle going at the moment, and it's a big one. And we have to be strong, and we're all a part of that fight. We're all a part of it in a way that we need to do our bit to make sure that that we win in the end. And whatever gifts we have, we need to be using them. Everyone's bit was really important, and sharing info and news and having people's voices heard was really important, Chase. So a lot of people felt like they had no voice, and a lot of people felt like they were alone. And the convoy to Wellington was amazing. Watching everyone make their way to Wellington was really cool with the support, and having that shared around was really important to the fight, and really important for what I was doing too with mental health and well-being. A lot of people, when they feel alone, they go to a dark place, and we actually lose a lot of those good people. So like I was saying, when you have a gift and you apply that gift, that's what Jesus does. He wants us to use our gifts we got for the good, and that's all part of that fight. So my one of my big things was saving one person, but by sharing and sharing someone's voice, you could save many. Social media is massive at the moment.
Yeah.
It's just an avenue where you can actually reach a lot of people. And if Jesus was here today, I'm sure he'd have his page where he's sharing as much as he can to reach as many people as well. So,
that's a really good point. That in the modern days of mass communication technology, we wouldn't have to rely on stories about him, or people writing down his works.
Firsthand. Our government might say misinformation. And
he would definitely be miscommunication.
Yeah, I did actually share a few pics of Jesus on the fight, and shared, because you want to share some good positive vibes sometimes, and actually I got Facebook banned for doing it because it wasn't meeting the proper criteria. So to try and work that one out, I'm not sure how that worked, but
This is a war on the truth, on honesty, and definitely it is a
Jason,
war on personal belief. Go ahead, buddy.
What I always try to say to people is, especially if they, want to get involved in a church or something, I always say, at least try and get involved in a church that's doing something, giving food to the homeless, or giving out blankets to people who are cold, or I used to drive a bus and we'd pick up people from shelters. And then I'd also say, because often people see the religion thing, I said, just keep looking at Jesus. He was never trying to coerce money out of anyone.
Yeah, that's right.
And just keep looking at him.
Yeah, and Paul, if Jesus was here, he'd be doing similar to what we're doing, which is going out there and meeting the people, and sharing, the hope that, good things will come. He wouldn't, like you were saying, there's some productive and proactive churches out there, but unfortunately a lot of them have copped the negative side, where it's more within, and money venturing, and maybe some bad stuff is happening too. I met a couple of pastors on the way down, and they asked me to go to their church when I got to Wellington, but I said, look, if Jesus was here, he wouldn't be going to a church. I said, if you want to come see me in Wellington, come see me where I'll be doing my stand. that's more important than actually going to a church, which is, a lot of them are, most of them have a protective thing around the church, and people are safe, most of them, the good ones. And then, so the church needs to come out of the church. You know, if it's a true religion for Jesus, he'd be out on the streets and he'd be helping people, a lot like what Paul's done, a lot like what I've done on the walk, and just met real, true, genuine people. And it actually gave me an insight into Kiwis in New Zealand and the real struggles they have, and sharing our struggles together, and them sharing their stories with me was this. It touched my heart, and it made me stronger, and it made me want to fight more for the people, which was I could see that if Jesus was here, he definitely wouldn't be in the church. He'd be out there fighting for the people. And taking it to those politicians is, in the Bible, he's been blunt with politicians, you know, in the Bible. So
yeah, and they try to kill him for it.
Yeah,
they try to throw him off a cliff and all sorts of things. The religious people, actually.
Yeah. So it actually this is quite a serious issue. It's not just a case of a church and getting together and on Sunday school. This is a very serious issue, because it actually. What do they say? It is a battle of, not of the flesh. It is a battle of spiritual wickedness in high towers. Yeah. And this is what people can laugh about Christianity. They can laugh about that and have a joke, but this is actually quite serious. It's a very serious issue, because it does involve a completely different realm which we don't physically see on our frequency.
I don't know if Paul felt it when I was in Wellington Central in the city. I was at the bottom of the beehive, and you could actually feel a darkness in there. Around about when I did my 25-hour stand there, around about 1 a.m, a family came through, and they were doing blessings around the area through what had happened with the protests. So they were blessing the site, and they came up to me, and we said a little prayer together. And they actually blown the horn, the Māori horn. So when you blow it, it actually clears the spiritual realm, and it just cleanses it. And they pointed that, they blew it around me, and it went well. Once they faced the shell towards the beehive, it wouldn't blow. And the beautiful Wahine lady, she actually said to me, she goes, when that doesn't blow, it shows that there's a strong darkness there. And so she blew as hard as she could, and it took about 4 to 5 blows, and then it slightly went at the end. And she said that's a very dark place. And I don't know if Paul felt it, but I definitely felt a dark presence in that beehive.
There is absolutely a darkness present in that place, because they are all part of that interconnected group, which goes up to the top. It goes up to the cabal. It goes up to the WEF. It goes up to the United Nations. They're a part of their family, you know. And in biblical times, we probably call it the left-hand path of Seth. In actuality, they stem from that bloodline. In reality, although if you're not bloodline, you're just called an luminary of sorts, and you're indoctrinated into the system. But through generations, you actually can become, you know, part of their gang permanently.
Yeah, so I got to go to both the camps, both Picton and Wellington, and I know that there was a lot of tension at times, that they were all going to come in with their shields, and the police were coming in. And that particular night, I took the cross, the crucifix, all through the camp, and just, you know, met with all the people, and because you could feel the tension. And not too many days after that, they did come in and beat them down, and mustard spray and all the rest of it.
Weren't they beautiful people down there, Paul? Wasn't it?
That's where the love was at. Yeah.
Everyone I met going to Wellington and coming home from Wellington on my journey, just amazing, beautiful people.
Yeah, and it was the mainstream media portrayed the total opposite to what it was. There was so much love, so many hugs, so many people took us in, you know.
Families too, like families,
Yeah.
little kids, you know.
Even the
beautiful
dogs were happy.
dogs.
They weren't even barking or anything.
No,
It was a great atmosphere. Yeah.
I didn't meet, on my journey, I didn't meet one negative, angry person that was for the cause. So any of the adversity I had, it was from the opposite. It was from people that weren't too happy with what was going on.
Yeah.
You know, it was sad to see those people. And they've lost the connection with, well, actually, you know, when I was standing in Wellington, you know, there's a few people that got pretty abusive when I was down there, and
Abusive at you?
Hmm?
Abusive at you?
Yeah, you've a lot of people that were in Wellington that lived there. When I was standing there, and I was standing next to the police, and obviously the protests had been taken out the day before. And so when they'd walk past me, they'd clap at the police and say, well done, well done. It was basically an F you to me, because I was still standing there with stop the mandates. And mandates
because they beat the propaganda.
Were they protesters or were they just regular city normies?
It's just the Wellington Central people that weren't happy with what happened with the protesters being there. Not a lot of them, but a few that, you know, for me it was, I felt sorry for them because, you know, it was like they don't understand that if there's a point of time when they want to stand up, they'll be treated exactly the same as our protesters were treated.
Absolutely.
The government they will not want to hear what they want to say, and they'll shun them exactly like our Kiwi protesters that were down there. And it's like a missed opportunity that a lot of the country could have come together and stood as one, where we could actually change. You know, we wouldn't be going through what we're going through now if we did. And that's for your freedoms, and it doesn't matter what those freedoms are. You know, people got to understand that people's rights and freedoms and Bill of Rights are really important, because that's what our Kiwis have fought for in the war. That's what we try not to forget every Anzac Day. But it was just it was just sad to see. And I got challenged a few times, which was cool. A couple of people come and challenge, which I'm open to, and just making sure they hear my side and making sure they understand that, you know, the impacts of what happened was on our youth is massive, and we're going to see a massive wave because nothing's in place to stop us losing those youth to suicide. And not just our youth now, it's our farmers, small business operators, mums and dads who are just going through a hell of a time with this inflation, cost of living, fuel. And I can really see the fuel being the next one where we're going to probably have a lockdown. You know, they're going to say only essential workers can get out there and drive their vehicles at some stage, because we're going to have that fuel shortage. So it's going to be a lockdown again, but it might not be a virus. But I'm guessing that it'll be something like the fuel shortage.
I do remember those rationing days, but the problem is, in reality, Paul, I'm going to flip over to you. In reality, none of this needs to happen because this crisis is artificially created. Do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And my brother, who is a devout atheist, but he's right on the right page as far as the ruling elites go, passed down from people like the Rothschilds, the Clintons, the Bushes, and of course our politicians are just puppets in a bigger picture. And it's very, very sad. It's all propaganda. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So
they talk about fossil fuel, and one of the reasons they call it fossil fuel is it gives you an interpretation that it's limited. But they drill down to 600,000 feet for for fuel. But the actual lowest fossil they've found is 300,000 feet. So it kind of points you in the direction that you're not being told the truth of even the limitation of fuel. So if they can make us all think that there's not a finite fuel out there, it's obviously going to be worth more, and it's going to be worth more to people, and they can actually control us in that way. So another form of control. And the biggest thing we can do is just put pressure on digging up the truth and making sure that we will find out the truth, because it's definitely if it's not a virus, it's going to be something like a fuel shortage that we're going to get locked down again.
Definitely. Abiotic is the buzzword here. It is a natural substance, and these robber barons, these big corporations, they have manipulated the narrative in order to dominate the market. That's it, to make cash. And they probably knew this was going to happen in the end. They probably knew that we were going to go to clean green energy, so they just ride it until the very end, and then crush it, and then just start again with something else.
Yeah. Well, I think it was the last 5 guys that invented the fuel, the water-run car, the hydro car. I think they all, suspiciously, died. So, when they talk about green planet and they want the best for the planet, obviously the technology is there to make it better, but it's when you can't control something, or can't control a mass, you're always going to have something in place that they can. And electric cars is not the answer. It's definitely not what we need, and it's not going to solve a problem. It's just going to cause more. Yeah. So, you can see the narratives when they're doing it.
If they go back to the horse, that will be good for me.
Yeah, I don't mind a horse either, mate. I don't mind at all. Yeah, we used to have a horse when we were young, just an old one, but to practice on. But yeah, even I
rode them as a jockey for 15 years.
For sure, yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah, that's right, you did.
I'll have a head start.
I'd take the donkey, Paul, because I've actually come off a couple of horses too and ended up in hospital. So I'll go with Jesus and his donkey. Less, not so fast, not so far to fall.
That's where you can see he was never material, because like you see these guys getting around in the Mercs and stuff.
No, not at all. Well, before we run out of time, I'm just going to ask where to next. What's your next big plan? We'll start off with you, Paul, because you're our special double guest, surprise guest that we didn't know we were going to get tonight, and also help to solve a big mystery that was going around as to the double identity of the cross bearers.
So I've walked the entire country of New Zealand from Stewart Island now to Hamilton, and so from this point I plan to put the cross in my car and travel up to Hamilton and complete the journey from Hamilton through Auckland up to Cape Reinga. And but it's not about the destination at all, Jason. It's about the people you meet.
That's the journey.
Yeah.
And the outcome. Well, the outcome is raising awareness.
Yeah, that God loves everyone. Yeah, and I think for me personally, you see that through what Jesus did for us. Yeah.
Jay, what's your next plan?
Yeah, obviously working at the moment, just saving a bit of money, and I'm actually working hard. We've got a couple of people who are struggling at the moment with their mental health, so making sure they get through what they need to get through, so making sure I'm available for that. I try and do some things that, I did Auckland to Wellington, and then I did the Tongaroa journey over Tongaroa, because that was spiritual as well. And that's the kind of with the kids in that it's about a wow factor, so it has to be really tough and it has to be a little bit out there what I do. So I did Papamoa, and I did up the mount there as well, just because a few people wanted me to walk there. So I had a request in Taranaki, and so obviously when we come up with an idea, I thought, I'm going to take Hope up Taranaki. Wrong time of the year at the moment to go up there, so as soon as I can I will.
So Hope is the name of your cross, right? Because I'm looking at your Facebook page right now. Delivering Hope means that Hope is the cross.
Hope is the crucifix, so Hope is your name, and that was really special, and that came from above as well. So, having the name of Hope and delivering hope to Wellington for all of New Zealand was really important. Save One is, there's obviously youth suicide awareness, which is really important, making sure that we know that we've got to protect our kids. And Save One was that something that we can do is find one person that needs a bit of help and needs a bit of support, and we try and stop them going down the road of suicide. So there's kind of 3 connections to it, and all really important with each other. So getting the awareness out there still, and understanding that in New Zealand our kids are still in a very vulnerable, bad spot at the moment, and that we could go through a stage where we're going to lose a lot more kids to suicide. And my fight is to make sure that our government's accountable for that, and they should be putting something in place. So my fight's with Andrew Little, Blomfield and Hipkins when he was the COVID response minister as well, because they're all responsible of not putting something in place to just to protect our kids from a safety net in place, to make sure that once they did mandates and once they did lockdowns that our kids were going to be in a good situation. The best after that happened, to make sure they weren't damaged. But unfortunately they are damaged, and we're seeing that now with the crime, 9-year-olds doing ram raids. We got so much shootings going on in Auckland and around the country, and the crime's just going through the roof, and it's our youth that are in trouble and they've got no hope. They've got no direction, and we need to really stand up for them. So if you're out there and you're watching this and you think, what can I do? It's just about making sure that we protect our youth, and making sure that we protect our youth in our circles, because we can't save the world, we can't save the planet, but we can actually save people around us and closest to us.
Absolutely. Think globally, act locally.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We all want to save the world, but it's a tough thing with everything that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's rather a large task for one individual, but by raising awareness, I mean, everybody can participate. By raising awareness, everyone can participate in their own way. They don't have to belong to a gigantic group. They can do their own thing in their own little town. There are no rules to supporting the truth. There are no rules to supporting peace, and there's no rules to supporting how we clean this planet up.
And touching base with Paul, obviously coming through Auckland, I'd love to do a little walk with me and him together, which would be really neat and really special. I really want to touch base with you, Paul, when you get close to Auckland, and we'll do a stretch together, right?
Yeah, that sounds so good. Yeah,
there you go,
absolutely.
A match made in heaven. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. A match made in heaven.
God, I know that in my heart of hearts that God put, Jay and I together, Jace. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. We're out of time. Usually I try to stick to 30 minutes. Well, I've been trying to stick to 30 minutes, but to no luck, we're not getting anywhere. But the stuff is so interesting, and I'd just like to thank you both for coming on tonight. We had a very happy accident this evening, which I am so thrilled to have you both here and to solve the mystery of the double cross bearers. So thank you very much, and have a great night.
Thanks, mate. Thanks.
And you too, Jace.
Thanks for that, Jace. And perfect timing, Paul. Just having a little gap and bringing you up and getting you on the show is awesome. And
I learned that I needed to download Zoom, so.
Yeah. So again, your State of the Nation. My name is Jason Bainbridge. I'm your host, and we're out of time. So we'll be back real soon with the Energy Report. Today is Wednesday. We'll be back on Friday. I'll be interviewing Kane from Tararua Family tomorrow as well, so we'll be looking forward to seeing that. And once again, to my fine fellow friends, Jason Woodmass and Paul Atkinson, thank you very much for attending the State of the Nation tonight. Good night. We'll see you real soon on State of the Nation. We're out of here.
With this feeling I can leave. I'm working